Hey everybody, this is Matt Atkinson, and you're watching Forward Gettysburg with Aaron Smith.
Thank you guys so much for joining me. My name is Aaron Smith and this is Forward Gettysburg. And today we're going to take a closer look at Little Round Top. Why was it such an important position? Was it really that important in the grand scheme of the Battle of Gettysburg? Is all of the attention, the famous portrayals in the movie Gettysburg and the novel The Killer Angels, is all that attention really that well deserved? Join me as we explore Little Round Top. Was it really that important? Today on Forward Gettysburg. Now, the story of Little Round Top starts not with the 20th Maine or even Dan Sickles, but rather starts here on the far right flank of the Confederate line. You see, on July 2nd, Robert E. Lee had devised a plan involving Longstreet's 2nd Corps to, quote, strike up the Emmitsburg Road. They're going to attack in parallel with that road to strike the Union left flank and eventually take Cemetery Ridge and take Cemetery Hill. You see, the story of Little Round Top starts with Law's brigade of Alabamians, led by Brigadier General Evander Law. This would have essentially been their position in the late afternoon of July 2nd, after marching some 25 miles, starting at 3 a.m. in the morning, ending sometime around 4 in the afternoon of July 2nd, 1863. They would sweep from the woods behind the camera, which you guys obviously cannot see. They would sweep out of the woods, down through this valley, and over there, towards the Union line. However, before that, as they approached these woods, as they approached this position on Warfield Ridge, they saw the Union 3rd Corps have moved forward. The 3rd Corps, of course, led by that dastardly Dan Sickles. Dan Sickles, moving his corps forward, would funnel those Alabamians into what would later become known as the Valley of Death. Now, as they made their way through this valley of death, Law's brigade would soon face fire, not only from Smith's 4th New York Battery, but also from the 2nd United States Sharpshooters. That would force them to kind of gravitate up towards Big Round Top. As they come over Big Round Top, they're going to be slowed down. It's a large, steep hill. Now remember, these men, they had been essentially constantly marching since 3 a.m. in the morning. They were tired. They were thirsty. One man had gathered all the canteens of the regiment of the 15th Alabama and went away to get water. That water would never come before the fighting started. So as you can imagine, these men are exhausted and now they're faced with climbing this hill. Now, as the rest of the Confederates would start to attack this area, Devil's Den, reinforcements would be called. Governor K. Warren, the chief of the Army Corps of Engineers in Meade's Army of the Potomac, he would realize that Little Round Top was a key position. He would call for reinforcements. The 1st Brigade he comes across is going to be Colonel Strong Vincent's Brigade of Barnes's division of the 5th Corps of the Army of the Potomac. He is going to send that brigade to Little Round Top. Meanwhile, Tilton and Schweitzer's brigade, also in that same division, they are going to continue their way to the wheat field. That brigade is going to contain the 20th Maine. Almost as soon as the 20th Maine took position there in the saddle between Little Round Top and Big Round Top, just over this ridgeline to my left, the 15th Alabama and elements of the 47th Alabama, both being commanded by Colonel William Oates, are going to attack. And a terrible, terrible fight is going to ensue. The fight that is made of legends. Hollywood has glorified this fight in the movie Gettysburg. The Killer Angels, it is a major set piece in that book. This is all what we know about, when people are introduced to Gettysburg, this is what they think about, Little Round Top. It's why it's the most visited place here on the Gettysburg National Military Park. The 15th Alabama will assault several times. Several times. They're charging uphill through these thick woods over rocky terrain. This is very rocky terrain around here. This is fairly inhospitable ground to travel over. Several times they're going to charge, several times they're going to be fought back. But the Alabamians, they have their fight up. They have their spirit, roll tide. So they are going to keep attacking, and eventually those Mainers are going to run out of ammunition. As the story goes, Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain, Colonel of the 20th Maine, will order his men to fix bayonets, and they will charge at the Alabamians, sending them running through the woods, capturing many of them, for them to never assault that position again. And this is where things kind of get a little bit muddy. You see, Chamberlain, a college-educated man, a college professor before the war, he is a very eloquent writer. He is going to describe this very brave charge, and in fact, he's going to win the Medal of Honor because of it. But he's going to describe this very eloquently, very detailed, this charge against the Alabamians. Now, William C. Oates, in his official report, he describes it as his men being very tired by this point, having no water, having marched for essentially 24 hours straight to get to this position. In fact, there was a counter march, which will be another episode eventually. So these men have been on their feet all day, no water. It's the hot July sun. They've been walking uphill, downhill, through this rocky terrain. He's going to describe his men as being exhausted, and he calls a retreat, perhaps simultaneously as Chamberlain calls that famous bayonet charge. So, let's get into it. Was Little Round Top really that important in the grand scheme of the Battle of Gettysburg? Little Round Top was an important location. One, currently it's closed. The Park Service is still doing work, should be opening here within the next month or two, finally. If you go on Little Round Top, it's a great location because you can see the entirety of the field. A wonderful location. That's why the Union originally had the Signal Corps on top of the hill. Not only that, but behind Little Round Top, almost immediately behind Little Round Top, runs the Tawny Town Road. Now, if you remember in my last episode I put out, I talked about Meade's roads that were so vital to him at this battle. He essentially only controlled the Baltimore Pike, which was his road, the main supply line, the main route of retreat, but he also controlled the Tawny Town Road, which also could have been utilized as a route of retreat and also was vital to his Pipe Creek line, which by day 2, Meade was still kind of clinging on to. So you realize that these two roads are vital to Meade's plan here at Gettysburg and his plan at large for the entire campaign that they're currently in. So if they lost Little Round Top, that would really allow the Confederates to come around to the Tawny Town Road. They could take Emmitsburg. They could even go to Westminster, to their supply base. It would be a disaster if Meade lost the Tawny Town Road. Now, some people might look at Little Round Top and say, oh, you could put some cannons up there, and even Oates described it as if he took it, he could turn it into a Gibraltar by nightfall. But Little Round Top itself is a rather spiny hill, kind of like that, if you will. Not a great artillery position, not as great of an artillery position like Cemetery Ridge or Cemetery Hill, which was at the time of the battle a great bald hill, relatively clear of trees, which was just phenomenal for putting artillery pieces on. No, Little Round Top, because of its location, being on the far left flank, and just by happenstance finding itself where Longstreet's attack on July 2nd is taking place, that is the key to its importance. And the Taneytown Road is absolutely vital to Meade's plan here at Gettysburg. Without the Taneytown Road, Meade only controls one road. And that just wasn't going to fly with Meade. Recently, online, Reddit, Facebook, all these different Civil War groups, Gettysburg groups, these discussion groups, it seems like it's become kind of popular to hate on Little Round Top, to hate on the 20th Maine. And I feel like perhaps that is a reaction to the popularization of the actions that took place on this hill behind me on July 2nd of 1863. I feel like it's one of those things where, oh, it's cool to hate something that's very popular, and I feel like that's not good history. When you look at the facts, the totality, the gestalt, to borrow a German word, if you will, of what was going on in the Union plan, and also just what was going on at Gettysburg at that time, the roads that Meade had to control in order to have a fighting chance here in the first place, I feel like people are just kind of downing it to down it because it's the cool thing to do, to, you know, downplay something, say that something's overrated, say that it's not that important. But Little Round Top was vital to the Union position here at Gettysburg. What happened if the Confederates would have taken it? They would have taken the Taneytown Road. But even then, you had the 6th Corps, you had the rest of the 5th Corps coming into play here. You're talking another 8,000 plus 16,000, 6,000 plus 16,000. You're talking another 20,000 plus men coming onto the field here. Even if the Confederates took it, the Union, they probably would have taken it back. It would have been, one of those neat alternate history things, but I'm starting to get a little bit off the rails. Well, thank you guys so much for joining me today on Forward Gettysburg. This was kind of a short little fun episode. It's just something, kind of a reaction to things I've been seeing online in different Civil War discussion groups, and just something that I kind of wanted to address and give a little, little bit of the history and whatnot behind this and why it was so important, almost like a springboard off of the last episode talking about the Baltimore Pike. Just the importance of the Taneytown Road. They kind of go hand in hand for Meade's plan. As always, my name is Aaron Smith. This is Forward Gettysburg. If you guys haven't already, please remember to like this video and subscribe to the channel. And I will catch you on the next one.